Happy Tuesday, all things Montessori community. How's everyone doing? So I don't know if any of our listeners live in Northern Virginia. And if you do, you know I'm going to talk about the cicadas. The cicadas are ready to emerge, and I've seen a few of them. And while I know it's cool, it's awesome, and I'm an elementary person, so I know it's great, and but it's also gross. So that's what I've been dealing with, but it's okay. I'm so excited about this week's episode. It's the second installment in the teacher series. There are more to come. I'm so excited to be launching this amazing series. I interview my dear friend Carly on this installment of the teacher series. She is such a beautiful teacher, mother, person, Montessorian, and friend. She is so loving, and we just have a wonderful conversation all about her experience, and she brings a real kindness and a great reminder of why we do the work that we do. So I know you'll enjoy it. She is just a delight. This episode is brought to you by Patreon. Thank you to all our patrons who support us. You guys are awesome. If you want to become a patron, you can head on over to our Patreon page. It's linked below. There are tiers that you can choose from. And, there's no pressure with any of this. It basically just helps me run the podcast. So there's, editing software, microphones, things like that. And in the future, I'm revamping our website. I'm trying to get a handle on, I really want to do some live events virtually and get people together. So I've just sort of been brainstorming that kind of stuff. So that's all that becoming a patron really helps me with. And then I give content back to you. There's some All Things Montessori stickers that you can get. And then you can get kind of, more exclusive conversations with me. So it's super fun. It's linked below if you want to join. And thank you so much to our patrons who already support us. And finally, our podcast is supported by the wonderful Sapling Supply. Sapling Supply is an amazing Montessori furniture company run by two Montessori dads, and you can check them out at the link below. They are great, and they make beautiful pieces of Montessori furniture. If you want to purchase anything on their site, you can go to their website, and then you can use our promo code ATM10 for anything off site-wide, 10% off anything site-wide. And thanks so much. I'm so excited today. I have one of my training friends on the podcast. Carly and I were fortunate enough to train together at WMI, which was a crazy experience to say the least. And then we also worked close to each other for a while in Virginia, which was awesome. So welcome, Carly. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here talking with you. And it's so nice just chatting with friends.
That's right. I know. We don't really get to do that very much anymore. I mean, wait, when's the last time I saw you? It cannot have been my wedding.
It may have been.
That's upsetting.
Insane. I know.
That's really upsetting.
And then we have to blame the pandemic, right?
So. Oh no, I mean that's most of that's 80%. Yes. So Carly, whenever we have guests on the podcast, we like to first ask them what their Montessori story is, because through my experience, I've found that everyone has a really unique way that they find out about Montessori. So tell us your Montessori story.
I would love to. So I had no intention ever of being a teacher, but I always loved children and working with children my whole life. I grew up really in the arts, so doing performing arts, dance, music, and I would help, all the younger kids with their dance classes and things like that. And so I was always involved in babysitting and everything. But I went to school for nonprofit management and dance and loved doing that. And my intention was to bring arts education to schools. That's really, really what I wanted to do, because I just felt, such value in bringing that to children. And after school, I had these great internships, and I was like, this is great. This is in the bag. I'm going to get to do all the things that I've ever wanted to do. Signed, sealed, delivered. Here we go. And I was looking for jobs forever, and I just could not find something.
Mm.
And it was about to be summertime, and my aunt was living in Philadelphia, and she said, hey, why don't you just come to the city, live with us during the summer? You can nanny for us. My little cousin was 3, and now he's about to be in 7th grade, which is insane.
What?
Yeah, not cool. But so I said, yeah, I'd love to. And so I stayed with them over the summer with the intention of, nannying for my cousin, looking for work in the city. And my cousin was going to a Montessori school at the time, and I had known that he had gone to a Montessori school, and his brother had gone. So I'd heard about it, but I had no idea what it looked like. I'd never set foot in the school, no idea. But I started kind of bringing him to school. I would pick him up, drop him off. So I got to know, some of the ladies at the front desk, give me a chat. And, the summer months turned into like October, and I was still there, and I was picking him up from school one day, and it was a later day because they had all day Montessori at that school. So it was in the afternoon, in the evening. There weren't many people around. And the woman at the front desk said to me, hey, are you looking for a job? And it was one of those moments where you turn around and look behind you and they're like, wait, are they really talking to me? Like, it was one of those times.
Yeah, of course.
And I said to her, I am looking for a job, actually. And she asked me if I had done any data entry, that kind of thing. I was like, yeah. And do you like children? Yes, I do like working with children.
Right.
And that was a Friday. And on Monday, the head of school called me to talk to me. And on Monday afternoon, they put me in the classroom. They must have been super desperate because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I was so nervous. I'd never been in a Montessori classroom before. And it was also the same classroom my cousin was in. So I didn't know how he would react. He was only like 4 or 5 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, okay, here, you can just go right in and sit right there and you can watch what's going on. And I was like, okay. So I just went and sat there, and I remember just thinking, I was amazed. I just sat there. I feel like my jaw kind of just dropped to the floor because I was in this room with all these very young children. It was a primary classroom. And they were no one was really loud. It was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
They were moving around the room. Some were sitting at tables, some were on the rug, just doing different activities, which at the time I had no idea what anything was. I was just seeing all these kids, with all these little cute trays that all matched. And I was like, oh, that's great. Everything's color coordinated. And I just remember being amazed. And my little cousin, he was just working like I wasn't even there. I was like, what is happening? And in that moment, I was just shocked, stunned and amazed. And I was like, okay, I have to know more about this. So I ended up just staying at that school. I started out kind of like as a floater, working in different classrooms. So I worked in primary and toddler, which was so fun, just seeing the different ages and helping with that. Then I actually ended up doing administration work for them for about 1.5 years. And I was out of the classroom at that point. I was at the school for about 3 years. And during that time, I went to the head of school and said, I love doing this admin stuff, but I really miss, being in the classroom and working with the kids. And the head of school, she had actually been elementary trained at WMI at the very beginning, and when it was in DC. And she said to me, I think you're an elementary person. I said, really? You do? She said, I really do. So she sent me to observe in an elementary classroom. And at that point, any of the feelings I'd felt observing primary, which was amazing. I went into elementary and I just wanted to fall over because I was looking around. They had all these great, posters that the children had made, and I didn't know, but there were, timelines and all kinds of things. And it was just this big, beautiful, bright classroom and full of energy. And I had that buzz, and I just thought to myself, yeah, she's right. This is where I want to be. And so then I applied to WMI, and everything else kind of fell into place from there. But yeah, it was kind of and my sister, it was so funny when I told her that I was going to go, get my master's in education and my Montessori training. She said to me, oh, well, I could have told you that you were going to be a teacher. And I said, well, yes, you could have. And it would have saved me a lot of pain and frustration. But anyway, yeah. And then since then I've been teaching. So this is my 5th year teaching elementary now. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I love that. I love how people find it. And I know that feeling of observation or seeing it. And I also thought I wanted to be primary, and I kept saying, yeah, I'm really interested, but primary, I don't know. Like,
I just didn't want to do it, but I'd worked with young children similarly to you. So I was like, oh, it totally makes sense.
That's the thing.
But it wasn't until I started learning more about elementary and really just delving in. And then I think it's like a personality test
Absolutely.
in some ways, right? It's like,
yes.
I think of myself in a primary classroom and it would be a mess. It would be a disaster. I am very clumsy and don't have a lot of grace. So who knows what would even happen?
Exactly.
Wow. So, and since we trained together, of course, I know like your whole story, but you jumped out of training into a 6 to 12 classroom.
Yes, I did.
And you worked with a teacher at first, and then you sort of transitioned into the lead guide role.
Exactly.
Which I don't know, you have to talk about it, but that seems like a pretty great experience. A really good way to ease yourself in.
Yes, it was wonderful. I'm really grateful because in the beginning, I definitely had my sights set on, a first through third year classroom, lower elementary. I just love that kind of chunk of the elementary years, and getting to kind of introduce them to everything for the first time is just so beautiful and wonderful. And so I was kind of avoiding the 6 to 12 because it felt so intimidating to me. But that's just kind of what happened. And I was able to work with this wonderful teacher who's still kind of, she's definitely still a mentor and a friend for me. And so we worked the first half of the year. She was the lead and I was kind of her assistant. And we worked together the whole year, knowing that the second year I would transition into the lead position. So it was wonderful because I got to do a lot of observation. Of course, she had me give lessons, which was a great experience. But I also got to experience that assistant role, which I think has been super valuable for me as a lead as well, because I've been there. And so I kind of know when I'm talking to my assistants, I've been in their shoes, which I think has been great. But it was a wonderful year for me. I learned so much. And I think that it definitely helped me transition into a lead role very seamlessly. And there's definitely panic every day still, when you go into the classroom. But I think I did have that opportunity to feel a little bit of a safety net for a little while, which was really, really nice. And just lovely. And then the second half of the year, I became the lead and she became my assistant. So she was still there with me and helping, and it was great. And I got to have experience, doing conferences with someone for the first time, who was there with me. So that was huge. All of those little things too, that you don't necessarily, you talk a little bit about it in training, but you don't have that hands-on practical stuff as much in the training. And so being able to do that alongside someone who had, much more experience than I did, I think was invaluable.
It's such I don't even know the right words, but it's, your brain is full and you're so inspired right after training. And that's how it should be.
Yes.
And then it's almost like ripping off the Band-Aid. You just get thrown to the wolves and suddenly there's little people in front of you that you have to manage. And then there's the parents that you have to help. And then there's all the one thing that I didn't even think of. And this is so ridiculous, but I didn't really know or really comprehend all the little minor detailed things that I would have to figure out.
So many.
So it's endless. The systems and dismissal and arrival and transitions. And then how are they going to store their work? Where are they going to store their work? Where are you going to put the trash cans? How are you going to do class jobs? It's just a mountain.
Yep. And then you feel like, oh, I have it figured out. And then something happens and you're like, no, this was not figured out. I have to reimagine all of this again, and it's different in, every classroom you're in is different. You think, okay, I've got it. I know how I like to do this. I am set. And then you have a different environment and you have to change it 100%,
Totally. And, I know we talk about how that wasn't in our training, but I don't think you can learn it until you're in it, because I think they could have told us all of that and they probably did, but there is nothing like I just don't think you can write a paper on classroom management and really get it until you have to do it in the moment.
And
you know what I mean?
It's the thing that everyone gets annoyed at us for saying, but it depends on the child, like everything. And so you can't give a straight answer because it really does. It depends on so many variables that you're not going to know until you're there.
Of course. And I've thought about this before, like, those children that you just have to remind yourself how much you love them because they push all your buttons.
Every year is different because, every year for every child is different.
Totally.
And you never know what's happening at home and behind the scenes and, in that development that is going on internally that we can't see. And every day, every moment can be different for them.
And I've always thought about how every child wants to succeed and do well. Every single child. They're not doing all of those things that perhaps might be making your day more difficult. They're not doing that maliciously, even though it might feel like that in the moment. You're right. There's who knows what's going on inside. There could be a number of things. And that's why Montessori is so beautiful, because we observe. It's like we're detectives. Like we try to figure out what is really going on. It's so easy to just label and then be angry, or label and then just sort of give up, which is super tempting when you're stressed and you don't know what to do. But so you are now in lower L. So you did 6 to 12 for 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. That's right. Because now you're just in lower L. So what's different about the transition?
It's so funny because you always think to if I just had it that way, maybe it would be a little bit different.
Grass is always greener.
Exactly. And I loved working 6 to 12, seeing, that full range of ages was amazing. Really seeing the progression. Being with children for 4 years, watching them from, 6-year-olds turn into that upper elementary student was amazing. And, you really see so much growth and development. And I cherish that so, so much, because you can really see why Montessori did what she did when you can really see that progression. And 6 to 12 definitely can be, for me at least, was overwhelming at times because there's so much to balance. You want to make sure you're giving those upper elementary children what they need and stepping away, but making sure they have everything and challenging them and the little 6-year-olds who need you constantly and balancing both of those things. But it was amazing. This year, I've basically opened a lower elementary classroom.
Okay.
So I have 17 6-year-olds in my classroom.
Sorry.
Yes.
Let's just take a moment to just reflect on what that's like.
You can laugh at that. Yes.
Oh my God.
And it's so funny because I was like, oh no, I love the 6-year-olds. I love them. And I do love the 6-year-olds. Of course,
they're just beautiful bursts of energy.
But I like 5 of them better than 17. That's for sure.
17 is a lot.
And so it's looked a lot different than I thought that it would.
Sure.
I've had to kind of do a lot more, because they all need something at the same time.
Of course.
All 17.
Yes.
And definitely now by the spring, we're definitely much, in a flow, which is great.
That's awesome.
But in the beginning, we had to do a lot of lessons with the whole group. I did a bunch, you know what I mean? But so it felt in some ways a little bit more traditional than you would imagine your Montessori classroom to be. But but having those groups with everybody, I was able to, start kind of opening these lessons up to them, have those conversations with them. And also they were able to be socially distanced because they're all sitting at their desks, so I really had to kind of rework it. And that was a challenge. So it definitely looks in some ways more traditional, but I had to do that for their sanity and for my sanity. But now they're definitely getting it going, which is great to see. And but man, it was so funny because the other day there's another elementary classroom at the school I'm in, and that elementary teacher was out for the day. So she asked if I would go in and help a few of her older students with some presentations. And I was like, oh, sure. So I went in and I worked with a 3rd-year student, and I sat there and I just thought, oh, this is why we have mixed ages.
Yes.
Because I just sat there and she was like, okay, yeah. And we chatted and she, did the work, and it would took maybe 3 minutes, and I sat with her, and then she's like, okay, I'm great. And I was like, okay, good. And I went to the next thing, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, there are so many reasons why we have mixed ages, but, just so that when you're in it with all those 6-year-olds, and you have that opportunity to see a third-year student and say, okay, this is where we're going,
Right.
and we can get there.
Yes.
And it gives you that glimmer, like that glimmer of hope when you're so in the weeds,
Absolutely.
So that was like just a breath of fresh air and a good reminder, why we're here doing what we're doing with these little ones, and we're moving them forward in their development. So that was funny to see.
And it does really all come together. For the 6-year-olds, there's nothing like I started an elementary classroom, so I totally feel you. I didn't have 17, I had 6, and then I had 8 and 10 or whatever. But I had 5.5 and 6-year-olds, and I didn't even know. I mean, being a first-year teacher, you don't know a lot of stuff, but I didn't know how much support they needed. And then I thought it was my fault because, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, wait, why aren't they getting it? Oh my gosh. But they really just they are like puppies. They just forget the minute you say something. So just for anybody listening who has 6-year-olds in their classroom, like it's not your fault. Like if you have to repeat something for every day for a month, it's totally normal.
And you might have to do it next year too. And that's fine too.
Everybody needs reminders. Exactly. Like grace and courtexy forever and ever and ever. I mean, I remember I thought that 6-year-olds could have a work journal. Like what planet was I existing on? I don't know. But it's just silly things that but the thing about children that is my favorite thing, and it will forever be my favorite thing, they are so forgiving and so resilient, and they just love you. And that's the beauty of a lower elementary classroom. I mean, they adore you. And that's really, that is a comforting piece of it, because they're soaking up all this knowledge because they just entered the second plane. They're like pumped to work with groups. It's like all of their characteristics are exploding. But it's exhausting. That sounds hard.
It's definitely, it's so funny because you're like, okay, this is my 5th year teaching, and I kind of know how I like things to go. Like I have certain things I like to do, and I kind of feel like I have a handle on what I'm doing. And I feel like this year, I mean, for quite a few reasons, but this year has definitely been my hardest year of teaching. And it has been the year that I wanted to give up more times than I ever had before. But we're here, which is
here. Well, also you're teaching in a mask all day.
Yes.
That's not fun.
Yeah. So we've been in person since the beginning, this whole year.
Right.
We've only gone virtual maybe 2 or 3 weeks during the whole time.
That's amazing.
So I've been very grateful. We've done really, really well. We haven't really had to close for any, major reasons or anything like that, which has been fantastic. And I definitely see the value in having the children together. But this year has been hard for lots of reasons. And I think that we really have to, as adults, as humans, think about everyone and what everyone is going through right now. And everyone is, in a different place, but we're all experiencing it in different ways. And especially the children. And I think that's the one thing that's kind of gotten me through every single day, realizing that if you really drill down, to the very core, the very foundation of Montessori's philosophy, why am I here? I am not here to stress out over presenting math presentations or language presentations or making sure they know, all the great stories or making sure that they know the states of matter. I'm here to make sure that they feel supported, that they feel loved, and that they're making human connection with each other, and that I'm there helping them as they develop as humans. That is the goal, right? And nothing is about me. It's not about me ever. And if and I'm definitely not saying I could do that every day at all. I have had weeks, where that's not happening at all. But
Sure.
if you think about the essence of what we're doing and realize that these kids they're going through a trauma,
Yeah.
let's just
sure
be
are.
honest about it. And that's
Right.
in whatever situation they're in, if they're doing hybrid, if they're in person, if they're doing virtual learning. I mean, and this is a core part of their growing up, of their development, and they're going to remember this. And how can I be there to just make a small difference in just 18 kids, and by loving them and making those human connections? Because I'll tell you, I mean, the most peaceful, productive times in my classroom, I'll tell you when they are: when we're doing read aloud, when we are singing, and when we're doing art. Those are like the most peaceful. And that's because, you're connecting with something deep inside of them in those moments.
Sure.
And it's definitely been tough. And I wonder all the time, like, am I using the right tone of voice? Like, they can't see my face. Like, how are they going to know, how I'm expressing myself, especially when wearing the mask. You have to project because they can't hear you. So like, do they think I'm yelling at them? No, I'm not yelling, but what are they perceiving? You know what I mean?
Right.
And just
of course.
really considering that all the time. And so it's definitely been tough. But like I said, going back every day and thinking, okay, any behaviors that you're seeing, anything that's going on, they're processing and dealing with so much. I mean, just for an example, I was speaking with one student who was having a tough day, and just talking with them, and it was near the holidays, and all of a sudden they just started spilling all this stuff. And they're like, oh, and I usually see my grandparents, but I'm not seeing them this year. And, all this stuff.
Aww.
And, like, these are the things they're thinking about, and they're scared, you know what I mean? And so just realizing that and thinking, like, this year, what's the purpose of this year? And I think in the midst of like, oh my gosh, 17 6-year-olds, and how do I do these lessons?
Sure.
In the midst of that, I've really had to think, okay, what's the purpose of this year as a whole? And I really think it's just loving these kids, and making those connections, those human connections with them. But it's been, so any of you out there who are doing in-person learning this year, keep going. You're making a difference. You're needed. The kids need you, and we need them too, because they show us that there's good out there, in humanity. So keep going.
Yeah.
And it's almost May, so you're doing great.
Oh my God, everybody's doing great.
Exactly.
Carly, that was so beautiful, because that is truly the essence. It's so true, leaving our own baggage at the door, meeting each child where they are that day, that minute. I think that is such a beautiful reminder, because while I know that kids are going to be okay, I mean, I think adults will definitely be a little bit more impacted, because we just have more baggage, like stuff going on. They are going through it. Not seeing grandparents, not seeing families, being just wearing a mask every day. And I love what you said about tone of voice and expression, because there's nothing like, they feed off of that, and that's a part of you. So that's how they get to know you.
Right. Exactly.
That's really tough. That's really hard. But kids they adapt so
and they're going to be great.
They're going to be fine. But that is so beautiful, just loving those kids. I mean, I think everybody should just be doing art and music, just like all the time.
Amen.
I think that therapy, reading aloud, oh my goodness, like that is so beautiful. And those 6-year-olds are lucky to have you.
Oh,
how lucky.
They're the best. They really are. Even though, they drive me crazy too.
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. That goes without saying. Oh my gosh. Well, this was just like a true delight. We'll have to have a part 2, perhaps next year, like after the year after COVID.
Yeah, the year after.
Different. The year after the year. I mean,
exactly.
How many years are we going to be in this? Don't know.
No, we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about it. But thank you so much for being here.
It was a pleasure. I was so excited when you reached out. No, it's great. So.
Of course. Well, I want to leave and just ask you if there's one, you kind of already did say this, but if there's one piece of advice you could give teachers right now, what would it be?
Yeah, definitely just remember the foundations of our training, why we're here. And we're here to help guide children through their development and help them with making those human connections and, talk about the world around them and how they can connect with people, show them ways they can connect in this time of connection that's hard to connect right now. And just, because our elementary kids, especially, they're our cosmic thinkers, so how can we help them connect? But just keep going. We're doing great. And they're going to be good too. And just remember the foundations, because I think that's the most important thing right now for sure.
Well, thanks so much, Carly.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel.